All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're actually hearing me speak right now. As expected, there are, of course, uh, technical issues to be accounted for. I'm looking at the people behind the computer to see if it's working right now. You're confusing me a little bit. Is it okay or not?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well,
Yeah, okay.
it's always a moment to hold your breath, of course. You can prepare everything 3 times, but with technology it can always fail. But, well, it seems to be working now. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here, for holding tight. Everything is starting now. So, well, we are here together today to talk about the future of fashion. So, as most of you know that are here in the live stream, there are some serious structural issues within the fashion industry. And there are many different organizations which are looking to solve that problem. But today we're looking at to see how we can find a solution together and what we are actually building towards. So I will first quickly explain you the basic structure of the live stream today, and then I will introduce the first speaker. So we will start with presentations from 3 other organizations. Clean and Unique will start first, spoken to you by Roosmarie Ruigrok. The next speaker is the True Cost label, which Jasper Roosendaal will do, and of course we will also take the opportunity ourselves to speak a little bit, and for that you will hear Jan Wunsch. And after we have had the presentations, it will be time for the panel discussion. So please remember that for the panel discussion we also really want to use your input for what we will talk about. So use the YouTube chat for that, as we will gather all your questions, and which we can use for input, we will use for the panel discussion. But also remember that we will gather your questions regardless and pass them on to the people you wanted to ask it to. So please do share your questions as they come up during the presentations. They will not be addressed straight away, but there will be a moment for this afterwards. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Jessica Til for being here. She will also join us during the panel discussion. She is a local fashion blogger and has another perspective on the industry than people actually within it. So after the panel discussion is done, we will have an opportunity for you actually to meet up with everybody you heard speak today. So we created different Google Meet rooms for which we will share the link in the chat, and you can just switch around there. So yeah, take this opportunity to connect with someone you thought is interesting, and you might want to ask a question. You can also think of wanting to meet the people that are in the chat today, so we also created the opportunity for you to meet up with everyone. Don't worry, we will take another opportunity to explain this after the panel discussion is done. But again, I would like to remind you to please share your questions for us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the first speaker that is going to speak today. So this is Roosmarie Ruigrok from Clean and Unique. I would just ask you to take it away, but please hold on tight. We are quickly going to set up everything, and then we'll be right back. So see you in a second, and enjoy the presentation from Roosmarie.
Did you ever wonder who made your clothes? Or how many pieces are made of what you are wearing? Take a look on your clothes. Is it unique? Or did you ever met someone in the street who was wearing the same? I was always a girl who wanted to have unique clothes, so I started when I was a year or 7 to start to make my own clothes. And that's why I went to the Fashion Academy after I was graduated from high school. And during my lifetime, I always wondered why we have to make so much clothes. Can't you see that there has to be something not right? I did some internships in companies, and I always wondered why. You have to imagine that in that moment there was no internet. You only can read something in school books or someone who was telling stories who did some buying trips. And in that moment, in the 80s, when I graduated, the stories were amazing. It was sexy, fashion life, glamorous, and yes, I want to travel as well. So that made that when I was 26, I traveled with my director for the first time to Malaysia. And he went to a hotel to make the orders and to sign everything, but I had to went to the factories. I had to control productions, and I was flabbergasted. It took me a whole weekend. I was crying. I was thinking why we have another type of thinking in Europe, for example, than in the Far East. Because I saw young girls, young boys, whole families, but hours and hours behind the sewing machines, dark, cold, wet from humidity. And that was my journey. And my journey was to change the world in fashion. I went from fashion to corporate clothing, so the uniforms, etc. And to change a little bit my world, that was to start my own company. So in 1991, I started Promax Company Wear. There's some difficulties.
We are not hearing you properly, so I will try something.
Okay.
But it should be better now.
Okay, wow.
Now you really have it pointed at your face, so there's nowhere else for the audio to go, I assume.
Yeah.
So sorry, but
Yeah.
it should be
So I started with the company I set up in 1991. It's Promax Bedrijfskleding in Dutch. It's corporate fashion I was creating. And I started with a small company working. And after a few years, that small company went bankrupt. But I relied on them. And I was thinking, I can't work without them. They are doing everything. So after a few years, they become part of Promax. And after 10 years, unfortunately, or maybe not, I sold my company. And in that moment, because PricewaterhouseCoopers was involved and an intern, this boy, he say, but do you know that you high-profiled yourself on CSR? And I say, what are you talking about? Because for me, this is common sense. And that made for me the journey, what I made. So I started Promax Bedrijfskleding in 1991. I sold it in 2001, and that made my next journey in sustainability. I started working at Amnesty International, where I had an immense lessons about working conditions, human rights, and I was surrounded with a lot of people who had this same mentality as I have. So we have to pay everyone in the supply chain, and we have to respect everyone in the supply chain. In that moment, I heard that Fair Wear Foundation was starting up. So I called them. I say, I think you need me because I know the industry and I come from the industry, and I think that I am a good ambassador because when I can see it, maybe I can convince other people to work in that way as well. So I set up together with a small team in that moment, Fair Wear Foundation, and I stayed there for 4 years. And when I think that there are more than 50 people working now with around the world, audit teams, etc., I'm very proud that I was part of the start of Fair Wear Foundation. After Fair Wear Foundation, Max Havelaar, Fairtrade Netherlands, asked me to put the Fairtrade cotton in the market because they did not had any connection with the fashion industry. And I was thinking, fashion industry, maybe they want 2,500 t-shirts, but we are going to change a Fairtrade hotel room. And I was thinking, okay, maybe because I am from the fashion industry, my creative mind can help this moving forward. In that moment, I also saw that the younger generation, they really transformed themselves as well. Because of the internet, you can see much more information about other countries, worker conditions, the Clean Clothes campaign. They put this message on internet, and suddenly a lot of students, younger people, young designers ask me, but we also want to do something else. It's not possible that we create a world with a bad supply chain, and before in front of the camera, it is all glitter and glamour. And in that moment, I started Clean and Unique. So it's now more than 14 years ago that we launched, but I think it's 16 years ago that I created Clean and Unique. And I can say that also in this, we were the first in the world with this platform, and starting only to speak about sustainability, to show what was going on in India, in Bangladesh, in Africa, but even around the corner in Portugal, because we think it's Europe, but even in Portugal, salaries are much different than we know from here. In 2013, a lot of people remember the collapse of Rana Plaza in Bangladesh, and it was a shock. For me, it was a double feeling. It was a shock. I was thinking, my God, every year we have 7 of this Rana Plaza. So every year more than 10,000 people die because of they make our clothes. Why no one stands up? But suddenly after Rana Plaza, a lot of people stood up. Minister Ploemen in that moment for Foreign Affairs here in the Netherlands, suddenly she say, okay, this supply chain, the fashion world must change. So she had a budget to work on that together. And these were the steps that nowadays much more people are involved. At the moment, I brought also Fashion Revolution to the Netherlands in 2014. I was for 7 years the coordinator. That's why I met also Daniel. He asked me some years ago already to do a presentation for Fashion Revolution. So it's wonderful to be here, Daniel. Currently, I work next to Clean and Unique. I work on the Reflow project. It's an horizontal 2020 project, and that starts from discarding textiles. Because if you can see that we have a lot of overproduction, we have to do something with that. And when you follow a little bit the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and I love what she says. She said we only can if we want to solve a lot of problems, we only can use what's on the planet and what you cannot dig anymore, and so don't use the oil anymore. So we have to cool down the earth, and that means that we have to be careful for that. And it's a lovely project. If you want to see something about the Reflow project, Google it. So 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I arranged a beautiful event, 10 years of Clean Unique, an ode to ethical fashion. And I've invited all the startups, but also the front runners from years and years ago. I invite everyone. Until today, I have a lot of compliments still, because the whole supply chain, but everyone who makes their steps in sustainability was there. From the government, from organizations like Fair Wear Foundation, the Clean Clothes campaign, but also brands who tell their story. And the big question is nowadays, after Rana Plaza, what changed, and is it possible to have a 100% ethical production? And that is really a big question, even for me nowadays. Yes, it can, but you have to take your own responsibility. And what we see in the fashion industry is that most of the time manufacturing is done by someone else. Bigger brands, they don't own their manufacturing places. So you also don't ask your neighbor, hey, come up, show me your bookkeeping, what you spent for this and this. And that is not polite. So how you can know that someone is paying the workers a decent living wage? They can say, and you can trust their brown eyes, blue eyes, but who can tell? And what is also a big problem, that the way of working nowadays, the bigger brands, most of the time they do not know where the production is. So they have their contacts because maybe of language. So I'm not critical on it, because you speak maybe not Bengali or Chinese. And how do you know that if they talk the truth, or if you are visiting a manufacturing place, if this is the manufacturing place where also your products are made? Because there are also a lot of manufacturing places and they look very nice, but they put only your samples maybe, and the production is somewhere else. Who say? And that means that to come from raw materials, so from the cotton who was growing in India, in Mali, or wherever, to an end user, the supply chain of a cloth is very long. Most of the time there are more than 40, 60 hands who were touching your clothes already. I think that you did not think about it when you bought it. Nowadays also, because of the economic system, grow is more, cheaper, where goes the money, the true cost, the true price. Everything is produced, but it's already made for to throw away. I show you here some other data, because only 2% of the consumers are aware what's going on in supply chains. Only the critical people are aware. And but at the moment also this waste problem of textiles, because if you burn the textile, there's a lot of CO2 coming into the air. So we do not want that textile is going to waste. And nowadays also a lot of, because of the price, and the fastness in the supply chain, a lot of fashion is made of materials. I think when you look at the label and maybe you go put it on the lab, you think I'm wearing this because your skin is the biggest organ of your body. So probably you are wearing a lot of chemicals and your body is inhaling all these chemicals. So think about it when you are hyper or you have skin problems. Maybe it are your clothes. Today, 70% of the fibers are man-made, so natural by the animals, or cotton, linen, hemp, are overruled by the oil sector. So most of them are made from oil, but not the clean oil we put in our car, because it's byproduct of the oil industry. So that's already waste. Of course, the chemical industry overtook during the Second World War this industry, because they had to make uniforms, they had to make parachutes, and in that moment the industry stepped in, because they did not need to wait to grow the cotton or to grow the hemp. They can produce it when they want and in what kind of colors they want. It made also for the cotton industry, it made a different step, because since the Second World War and the growth of cotton, a lot of chemical industries stepped into in this crop, and they sold the pesticides, etc., to farmers worldwide. But the seeds to grow cotton, they needed also these pesticides, because it's a GMO cotton, and they sell this as a crop. This is a strong crop, your cotton will be fine, we can buy your cotton. But on the other hand, they had to buy from these chemical industries, they had to buy also the pesticides. That meant that in an area like the Aral Lake, these cotton farmers, they are started to use it. They needed also a lot of water, and now the Aral Lake is on the map seen without any water anymore, and no fishery anymore. So also the people, they don't have their daily food what they used to have. These are some pictures. Some I took myself. Okay, I can see that I did not put it very nicely in the presentation, but this is in warehouses where are discarded textiles. You put in the textile bin, or it are stuff with overproduction, or a production the brands don't want because there's a little mistake in it. And worldwide, I heard that every 30 minutes, one big truck put their textile waste somewhere in the world, somehow, somewhere. Ethical fashion, it's not one thing to do, and that makes also a little bit confusement to consumers. So what is ethical fashion, what it is? So probably you heard about the air ladder, so refuse, rethink, and when you have this in mind, maybe also you can rethink your own closet. Shop in your own closet. Look what is already there. You can something repair. You have already 4 jeans, and maybe 2 of them the zipper is broken. Go to a repair a tailor to repair it, because that is 17 euros, and a new pair of jeans is more than 100 euros nowadays. So it's also beneficial probably for you. But look, if you can have also a wardrobe with some items basic. So buy a t-shirt or a top or a trouser from a good quality, maybe handmade, maybe from a local supplier or a local brand. That helps also to understand your own mind and to change, to make little steps in that. Consumers are asking, yeah, but where do I have to look at? So I show here some certification bodies, but I have to say that certification are also very expensive. So that's why also some products with this certification are a little bit more expensive than non-certified products. But pay it, because when you buy something with a fair trade label, you know that also the cotton farmer, they get a normal price for their cotton and not the daily price what's on the market. So production in Europe, it's better, I think. We live here in Europe, so try to produce also here in Europe, because it's the quantities most of the time are smaller. The brand who is going to put it on the market, they have a much closer relationship with the manufacturer, and the time difference, because I remember when I worked with the Far East, I mainly had to work till 10 in the night because the time difference, and then they asked me also to work from 9 o'clock. So I think for the people in the fashion industry, I hear a lot of people that they have a burnout. Take also care about yourself. But to produce in Europe, because we also speak about Poland, Romania, etc., not only about Portugal or Spain, be aware about salaries. We have worldwide, there are all kind of different kind of regulations. We live here in the Netherlands, or maybe you live in Germany or whatever, but the regulation in every country is different, and that's what I learned also in Amnesty International. Every country is different, so you have to approach always what's going on in that country and what's important. I want also to say that starting brands, they also have to understand that within a few years we are going to make a big step into extended producer responsibility, and that I hope is going to change a little bit the world, because the brand who makes and puts something on the market, products, not only clothes but also other products, they stay responsible. So what they can find on the streets, they stay responsible. But maybe we can do another time of us talking about that. So I want to wish Ragnarok good luck, and I'll be there, and you are part of our community, of the Clean and Unique community. So thank you for this, and stay connected.
Well, thank you very much for that very interesting presentation, Rosemary. I think, well, I hope everybody in the chat agrees, but I'm sure It's clear why we also asked her to be the keynote speaker of today. Rosemary can be seen as quite a heavyweight within the fashion industry, having a lot of experience about this. And well, your presentation clearly showed that. So thank you very much. And then the next presentation we'll be having is from the Truecost label. Jasper Roosendaal will come to speak. We're quickly going to transition again, so hold on tight. We'll be right back.
Welcome everyone. I will be speaking for Truecost label. My name is Jasper Roosendaal. I'm one of the founders of Truecost label. And tonight I'm here with my co-founder Vincenzo, who will join us in the panel discussion. For this Future of Fashion event, I would like to talk to you about the true price, the true cost of your garments. This is us. We're a small team. We just started for about a year, and we just launched our platform, which we are very proud of, which I will take you through the demo in after this presentation. But let me first tell you a bit more about us. The question that we ask ourselves daily is, what is the true cost of our fashion for the future of our environment? We know that the fashion industry is responsible for a lot of carbon emissions. One of the biggest impactful sectors, only next to oil and gas industry. And we know that our government has put a very strict goals for the future. Following the Paris Climate Agreement, we have set our goals to be 50% less CO2 impactful in 2030 and 100% CO2 neutral by 2050. And in order to do that, we need to know what are the true costs of our fashion and of our garments. On top of that, with the new trend of circular economy, where it's all about circular textiles, such as recycled materials that Rosemary also already talked about, we have set a goal that we want to be 50%, we want to recycle 50% of our clothes in 2050, and they need to be made of 50%, 2030, and they need to be made of 50% sustainable materials. And the big question that the government is also still asking themselves is, what are sustainable garments? What are sustainable textiles? And this is the key problem, which also has been discussed. Only 2% of consumers are aware of the supply chain. And I think at Truecost label, we think that this is a very big problem, actually the major problem. Because if you are a sustainable or a responsible consumer and you want to make a fair choice, what do? You cannot say anything about the clothing based on what the brand is telling, because there is also a lot of greenwashing. And what is greenwashing? It's brands saying that they are very sustainable, usually done by very big corporate companies with a lot of shiny designs on their website, but without actual numbers to back up their claims. And those numbers are the numbers you need to reduce your footprint. how you need to know and need to be fully aware of your supply chain to say something about the CO2 emissions of your garments, to say something about how much water they are using, and what this is related to. Is this related to the cotton plant, which uses a lot of water? Is this related to the painting, which uses a lot of water? And what kind of strategies can you implement to actually reduce your footprint? And this is also what we like to show to our brands on our Trucost platform. So that's our 3 key stakeholders. We work with the government, we work with brands who are our clients, and you, the consumer, you are our ultimate end user. We want to inform you of the true cost of your fashion. And we mapped the needs of our key stakeholders in 3 areas. For brands, they want to see how can we be sustainable? How can we create awareness about our supply chain? What kind of strategies can we implement to be a sustainable brand? How can we create this transparency not only for ourselves but also for our consumers? And how do we communicate that to our consumers? And you as a shopper, you want to be able to make an easy and safe choice about your clothes. You want to be able to say, okay, I feel very positive and certain that I'm dealing with the right people, I'm dealing with the right supply chain, and that I'm wearing something that is going to be my next favorite fashion item, and that doesn't only look good, but it also feels good, both on a sustainability level. And ultimately, we aim to help the government reach their national goals in sustainability, because it's also in their need, in their ideal, hopefully, that to create a better world and protect its people. Well, the big question then is, how do we calculate your true costs? And this is where the beautiful term of life cycle analysis comes into place. Me and Vince have both a background in environmental analysis, and we are sort of a power couple when it comes to life cycle analysis, where we literally break down every part of your product. We started the very first fiber, from the cotton that is grown in the farm in India to the manufacturer that makes it into yarn. This yarn is then woven or knitted into a shirt, like Ragnarok's shirt, and then it's dyed and shipped to you. And there can be so many flavors, there can be so many different techniques. You can use screen printing, you can use digital printing, you can use different sizes of spinning. And what we basically did is build a very big tool where all of those processes are in the backend database, so that when we analyze your product, we can go into to the max detail, and we'll also rush you with all the questions needed to get those details, and then give you a super detailed profile of your supply chain and your product. Well, the second thing is that this information, this full transparency, we like to call it radical transparency, this is what we portray on the platform. So Ragnarok is now on our platform, showing the CO2 of their product, showing the water use of their product, showing the amount of kilometers traveled by their product all the way to your to their warehouse, and it shows a story about what they do to have a higher impact on the social elements of the people that made the product. And if you're a brand listening, please feel free to hit us up and join our Sustainable Brand Collection, because we're really trying to build a community here that we can inspire other people to make more sustainable choices, and hopefully we get some sort of motion going that people more often choose a sustainable brand rather than a Zara, for instance. And this is our promise. We would like to make it simpler to buy and sell sustainable and ethical fashion. That's what we promise to both the brands and the consumers, because choosing your next fashion item is already very hard, so at least let sustainability be the easy part. I will take you to the platform. Of course, this is now a PDF, so the demo won't work, but I think I'm connected to the internet, and I think this is showing on the screen. Maybe not. Will it be possible to show it on the screen?
Yes, give me a moment.
Should I go to the URL?
Yes, we just go to the website, right?
Yeah. No, I'm typing on a German keyboard, excuse me.
It's not really working.
Oh, it's well, go and check out the www.truecostlabel.com, and
I'll share it in the
Yes, and check it out. We would love to receive your feedback. We are just, we haven't launched officially yet, so any raw feedback is very welcome. And that's it for our story. We like this quote very much, so I'll let it be on the screen a little bit while we transition. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for the presentation, Jasper. I think we also agree with this as being a really good quote. We saw it when we were already previewing the presentation. We're like, yes, that's a really good way of explaining that. Just generally, thank you for also coming to speak today. And yeah, we're really grateful actually for the partnership we have with you guys as well, because it helps us to, well, kind of give some weight to our story. Of course, we're trying to make a serious impact, but you can talk a lot about impact, but if you cannot show impact, then you're still really not changing a lot. So, well, we're very happy with that, and we're sure our collaboration is only going to flourish in the future. So then, next up is someone that might be a bit more known to most of you watching. That will be, for ourselves, Jan Woens will be speaking. So we will again quickly set up. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. And then, well, I'll give the floor to Jan.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, and well, most of all, also thank you to Rosemarie and thank you to Jasper for their contributions. I think they've illustrated the problem very well, and so I will try to nicely make an arc to what we try to do. So we are Ragnarok. We are a company that has been created because of the practices of the fashion industry and because of the resulting impact that we can see. And we start our journey with these shirts. I am Jan, I'm one of the co-founders, and I want to make use of these next few minutes to introduce you to our new standard for fashion and the three principles that guide us in establishing this standard. And I would like to start with honesty, because what we want trust. We want people to be able to trust us. We want people to be able to trust that what we claim we do, we actually also do in the end. And so we share insights. We share insights from production. We share our failures. We share our accomplishments and everything in between. What we also share is, and that's why I'm very glad that we also have the Truecost label here, we share the journey of a product. You can trace the product from the raw material up until it actually ends up on your doorstep. Once you scan your QR code, which is on your tag here. Once you scan that, this is what you will see. And it ultimately also shows in the way we communicate on social media. The people that make all of this possible, we think they deserve to be front and center. And this is also something that counteracts what happens in the industry, where it's mostly about anonymity. And, well, Rosemary said, your garment usually goes through 50 to 60 hands. I bet the last hand you see is the one of the vendor, but that's it. So we want to actually show who's behind the brand, who's behind the clothes, who makes this possible. And when I talk about honesty, I think it's also very important to say that we want to be honest to ourselves. We are aware that a company like this, a good company as we want it to be, is not created by snapping your fingers or in a day or two. Especially when you see where we started, I think this has been a journey of, so far already, this has been a journey of constant improvement and of consistent improvement. And we want to keep this going, and that's something that counts for the company as a whole, and it's something that we encourage our employees to do also on an individual level. Which leads me to co-creation. As a company, for our company culture, we believe that we should be enablers of talent. We should be there to help our employees to grow. So we see ourselves more like as a talent hub that should have all the conditions for our employees to grow. I'll give you an example. Let's take the example of recruitment. Instead of taking the classical approach of looking at a CV, seeing what a person can do and hiring based on that, we rather try to hire based on intrinsic motivation and on the commitment those people want to show to commit to our vision, to contribute to our vision, to our overall vision. And the principle of co-creation also shows in the way we collaborate with others. We collaborate with other partners from the industry. We collaborate with companies in other industries. We collaborate with artists. And we have, well, if I look around the room here, there's a lot of people that we actually collaborate with. So this is a good environment to talk about this. But yeah, we just love to collaborate. And if you look around the fashion industry, some might see that as suicidal, I guess, because the fashion industry is probably the most protectionist industry in this world. And also that was illustrated very nicely by Rosemary. There is an endless race to the bottom. People try to go cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And of course, then they protect what they have, because otherwise someone's going to come and underbid you. Well, we will keep loving collaborating, so this is something you will see more in the future. The two principles I've just talked about, honesty and co-creation, they illustrate how we do things in the company. And they also illustrate how we aim to transform the industry. I think one big question remains in this, which is, what about the impact that we still have? And what about the damage that is done in the industry and the damage that has been done in the past? And before I go into this, I want to make one thing quite clear. The best way to reduce our impact, and this counts collectively, but it counts for everyone, individually as well, the best way to reduce our impact is by reducing our consumption. That being said, we also have the strong ambition to, at the same time that we reduce our consumption, to regenerate. In our production, everything is guided by this thought to regenerate. First of all, we produce on demand. Only when clothing is actually ordered, we produce it. Secondly, we design for circularity. So if we take our shirt, for example, nearly 100% of the shirt is made from one and the same material. There is no fiber blending. There is no non-degradable component in the shirt. We want to start a loop here. So this shirt can actually be remade into a shirt like this. Yeah, I know it's the same, but that's the point, right? It can be made into a shirt like this without adding any material. Speaking of the material, actually, we use Tencel, which is made from FSC certified trees, and the fiber actually by now is also CO2 neutral. We work with like-minded and ambitious suppliers, which are all located in the European Union, and we opted to strongly localize our production, our recruitment, and our marketing efforts. And as you can see in the graph, which shows our impact, which is actually based on the numbers of the Truecost label, thank you for that, So if you see the graph, what you can actually see is that our shirt is, impact-wise, is better than any average shirt. So we actually have a fraction of the impact of an average shirt. However, we are determined to bring this down as far as we can. We truly believe that we are responsible for the true cost of our production. And when I say true cost, the accent is on true cost of our production. And in turn, this means that we also actually have to do something about this. Today, I'm excited to announce to you the Ragnarok Regeneration Pledge. In the next 10 years, we will gradually increase our compensation efforts up until a point where we reach a 10-fold regeneration. The goal is to assure that we are accountable for our negative impact while having positive impact actually from day one. This shirt delivers actual positive impact like no other shirt can. And to show that we mean it, we actually already compensated more than our projected emissions from 2021 together with EcoTree. And we committed to, until 2025 included, we will finance the full pledge. We will make sure of this time, or we will make use of this time to diversify our compensation measures so that they are more than just planting trees. And again, we will do this in cooperation with EcoTree. Well, all of this will not be built in a day, a week, or a year's time. But it starts here, and it starts with this shirt on July 7th. I hope that you will join us on our journey to a new standard for fashion. And in the meantime, make sure to check out our social media channels and follow our latest updates. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thanks. Is it a gift? Wow, thanks. Great presentation. Maybe the best one today. No, that was very nice. Thank you, Jan, for sharing our story with the rest of the world. So this means that we can get into the next, more interactive segment of our live stream today, which is the panel discussion. So as a reminder, we want to take your input into it as well. If you don't want to give your input, that's fine. We prepared some other topics we can discuss about. But take this opportunity to, pick our minds. So if you're wondering about a certain topic that you came across repeatedly when exploring the fashion industry, put it in the live chat in the YouTube chat, and we will use it as well as input for the panel discussion. So again, we're quickly going to set this up. This is going to take just slightly longer because we'll have to move around a little bit, but we'll be back in a minute or two. So hang around and we'll be right back. All right, perfect. So, just as a general reminder, we are experimenting today as well, so please do share any feedback like you have already been doing. Also for the audio now, we're going to see if everything works. We did check it before, but you never know. So for all the people in the panel, well, first of all, thank you for being here, of course. Secondly, try to speak loud and clearly, because, well, this microphone likes that and it will pick up your sound much better. And also, just a general ground rule, I don't imagine you'll start suddenly fighting between the two, between all of you, but please do try to listen to everybody, of course, and let them finish their points. So, all of you are a little bit shy in the YouTube live stream, so you don't want to hear us speak about anything, or at least you just want to see what we wanted to talk about. So I'll start with the topics that we prepared, but if you do think of something, a topic that you would like us to talk about as we are doing the discussion, share it, we will hear about it, and we will use it as input. So without further ado, let's get started with the first topic for the panel discussion. Well, again, just a quick introduction of everybody we have here. Of course, we know it, but well, Jan, thank you. Roosmarias, thank you. And Jasper, thank you also for all your presentations. And Jessica, thank you very much for being here. We have tried to make it a bit more of a rounded discussion as well, so we don't only have industry representatives. So we're very grateful that you could find the time today to be here. So what we wanted to talk about first is a topic that, well, might feel a bit like friction because, of course, we all very much care about this. But it's still an important topic, which is the sustainability in the fashion industry. It's been, well, explosively growing. Rosemary, you already pointed out in your presentation. After Rana Plaza, suddenly many more people cared about the way that the production is done within the fashion industry. But is this really a lasting trend? Or do you sometimes fear that sustainability in the fashion industry is more of a hype? So that's the first topic I want to throw into the group. And well, Jessica, maybe it's nice to give you the first opportunity to speak, and then please do react as what comes to mind. So yeah, Jessica, do you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Yes, I started my university career with the fashion industry in mind, and my first essay I wrote was about greenwashing. And you can already see that a lot of fast fashion companies are using sustainability as a marketing tool right now, which is interesting to see if they're covering up about production or if it's actually a serious effort. But what we do see from the ground up is that consumers are being more conscious about what they buy. And even after COVID-19, this trend is only accelerating. And what actually happens is businesses tend to follow the consumer trends. So what I'm seeing from the ground up, being on Instagram and doing social media, is that it's getting a huge traction, and I think this will be a change that the younger generations are pushing forward, and that later generations are picking up as well. So I think this will definitely be the foundation of the fashion industry in the years to come. And I think it will be a lasting change, seeing what fast fashion companies are doing, but also the other fashion companies are picking this up as well, and increasingly using technology and life cycle analysis to put their products and shed a more serious light on them.
Nice. Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, you're basically also saying that, well, when you started with your university studies, you already, well, saw the problem of greenwashing, which you could argue is kind of an example of the hype aspect of sustainability, organizations just making their communication sound right so that people like it more and want to buy their products. But simultaneously, you're saying that you do really see development also on the Instagram channels where people are really more serious about the sustainability aspect of their clothing and taking that more to heart. So if I get your perspective, you do believe this will be a foundational aspect of the fashion industry in the future as well. So does anyone have another perspective on that, something they would like to add to the story that Jessica just shared?
I would love to add something,
Yeah, please.
because I think that consumers want always that their clothes are well made without any harmful things. So when it showed already in the 60s when Adidas start to produce in the Far East, and some students in America, they found child labor in the supply chain. So they stopped immediately this sweatshirt for the universities. And I think that when consumers know that they are in shock always, only today we have also money-wise an aspect in mind that especially here in the Netherlands we have always sale. There's always something cheaper. There's always your brand, maybe you bought and you were thinking, okay, this is a good brand, and maybe 2 weeks later it's already in sale. And I love to see that also from the industry they shout out for regulations. And I think that that is a good step. I spoke already about EPR, the extended producer responsibility was coming up, but I think maybe also in the future there are more regulations. Slowly it starts already about child labor. We have already in the Netherlands a law that when I, as a consumer, found out child labor or something else in a supply chain of a brand, I can go to court. Only we do not do. We have only this journalist who reports, but they don't go to court. And probably maybe also, last week they went for Shell to court. Maybe this is also a step that maybe someone out of the industry can do. Because I think that the consumers, from their heart, if you interview consumers in the streets, they say, you ask them, they say, yes, of course I want it. But then who is going to pay? And because we are not used to pay the true price of a product anymore.
So do you then also believe that through time this will improve as people get more used to the increase in prices maybe that they have to pay for their clothing products, and through that get more supportive of maybe also, well, giving away somewhat of their financial capacities in order to support this movement? Or are you actually, because I hear that a little bit in your story, maybe sometimes worried that consumers actually will take these steps to pay more for their products in order to support the sustainable movement?
No, that's niche. I think that small group in the start of 2000, we saw a group, it's the Cultural Creatives. They were aware, they want to have a perspective, and they were buying, for example, also this pure, the food, the pure line from one grocery here in the Netherlands, because they say, okay, I'm not able to do it by myself, but I want, by buying products who say we are doing good, biological, fair trade, etc., or good garments, they want to do, and I want to pay good price. But mainly, most of the people, they say when you put two black t-shirts, one of €3 and one, I don't know the price of Ragnarok, but say 49 euros, they choose for the €2. And that has to be changed. So in the behavior, and it's only by creating awareness to tell the stories and to shout out, and that's why I love nowadays that so many brands tell their stories, especially sustainable brands, because they are proud of who made their clothes.
Yeah, that's a really nice insight, I think, where well, the information hopefully will contribute to the change. So you cannot just expect consumers who have been almost well, indoctrinated with like low prices to instantly give up their financial capacity in order to support the clothing. But as clothing brands take more responsibility for it as well and share their stories, I think at least I hear a hopeful message in what you're saying. You do believe.
Of course, there's a lot of work to do, and I hope the sale, we go back till 1984. Since 1984 here in the Netherlands, sale can be every day. I hope we come back to 1984, that only a few times per year is sale. And during that moment, like in Italy, like in Belgium, they have these regulations. And I think this kind of regulation will help that also retailers who say, if I'm not in sale, my neighbor is in sale, so I have to do as well in sale. And we are going to stop that, so to slow down also that part of this increasing running
Right.
for to catch the customer in your
The race to the bottom,
exactly.
kind of, yeah. The Black Friday hype that you've seen increase over the years, where Black
Yeah.
Friday used to be a day and it's weeks on end now, it seems. Though, do you, Jasper, or Jan, Jasper, what would you like to add on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this company that found kind of a nice loophole to the whole price situation. Because if we look at Vinted, they really find a way now to make secondhand popular and cool. Nobody's talking about, oh no, it's a secondhand thrift shop. I'm not sure if I want to be seen there or if I want to buy there. And these products, I know many people who use them. And before I didn't know a lot of people that use secondhand clothing. And this is not even like, oh, it was worn 30 years by your dad. It's oh, I had it. I wore it 2 times, but it didn't fit me, or it was too small, it was too big. And there's actually also very, I would say, high brand content. Like very expensive, high fashion items there. That, yeah, I think so. It has something for everyone.
Yeah, and is there, do you have an idea of why Vinted was able to, make it more mainstream then and more accessible or more standard to go for that sustainable choice?
I do have an interesting theory about it.
Okay, share it, please.
It's because their marketing is revolved about how cheap it is to buy secondhand. Because they say, sell your clothes on Vinted, you can make some pocket money on the side. They don't focus on, look, we are so sustainable. Because that whole sustainability story has been chewed on a lot. Sometimes consumers are a bit tired of seeing green and seeing, look at us, so sustainable. I'm not saying that it's wrong. If you have a good story with good numbers to back it up, I think it's amazing still. But the average consumer is not driven by that, oh look, sustainability. They're like, oh, I can make some money on the side. That's good. It's good.
Right, that's interesting, and I think it connects very nicely to what you also just said, Rosemary, where, like let's say 90% of the consumers unfortunately are not necessarily driven by the sustainability of their choices, but maybe the price or the quality of their choices first, and then they take a look at the sustainability aspect. Jan, do you have something you would still like to add on this topic?
I'm summing it up a bit in my head, actually, to be honest. Now, what I hear in all of the answers is a bit of a shift in responsibility. So I think if we want to make a trend last, and I hope sustainability is not a trend, but actually, let's call it an enlightenment or something. But I hope it lasts, and I think culture. But I think it has to do with responsibility. So far, the responsibility laid solely with the brands, and they could do whatever they wanted, and no one was checking on them. Now we have customers who really start to investigate, who wonder, where do my clothes come from, and finally we have governments who start to really also make sure that brands are responsible and accountable for what they do. And that's then also, again, when we talk about the price we pay in the shop and the actual true cost, there we really need to make a differentiation. There we really need to transparently show what is behind the product. What does it entail when I grow a kilogram of cotton? It's not just a kilogram of cotton that costs money when I buy it. No, there's actual consequences to it, and that's, I think, just very important to show. So it's about information, and it's about sharing responsibility, I think.
Yeah, no, that becomes, I think that's a definitely a nice add-on that you just made, where everybody has to take a part of the responsibility. You cannot just look at the brands, you cannot just look at the consumers or the government agencies. Everybody has to put in the work, and I think, that is something I at least hear in all your answers is, luckily it seems like you all believe that sustainability will not just disappear from one day to the next, but that it will be a lasting trend, or, culture maybe. But still, there's much more work to be done for this to become the broader standard in our societies. Right now, this is still not the main driving aspect for most of the people that they make their choices. Unless any of you still have a burning answer you would like to share on this topic, I would like to venture into another direction, which is kind of connected to what we already touched upon, but I think it's an interesting aspect, and unfortunately today there's no government representative here to shed a bit of light on the story from their perspective, but I do still think that it's a very interesting aspect of achieving things like sustainability, which is the role of government. So to what extent, or what role do you see governments playing in actually in reaching this better industry? Do you believe that they are maybe more of a party that's lagging behind, reacting to what is happening, or can they take an active role in this to make it happen? So yeah, I'm just curious where you would place that role of governments. And maybe Jasper, do you have something on that you would like to kick it off with?
Yeah, and I already mentioned a couple of laws. We have the Paris Climate Agreement, we have the Circular Economy Program, the CO2 reduction program from the Dutch government. This is all coming from a European playing field. We have also now the European Green Taxonomy law, as it's so called. It's very focused on environmental. But basically it's going to forbid greenwashing. It's going to ask people that say we are sustainable, okay, show me the numbers. If you can't, you have to either put it off your website because you cannot proceed your business. So I think all of these things, they really make sustainability now something that is not only a niche, but it's starting to come more into dominance. And if you ask me, I think it all depends on the government. So consumers, they follow each other if something is hip or trendy, but I think the government will incentivize the company to make it. The company will make it cool. They will approach influencers. Other people follow the influencers, and then you get this whole paradigm shift. But it starts with the government, if you ask me.
Okay, so you see governments in that sense almost as the enablers of the whole movement, and without them moving, it's maybe hard to see real transformative change in that sense, if I understand you kind of correctly.
Yeah.
I also think government has a very important role because they can make it hurt for brands. You know, they have taxes, and you mentioned it, and they just have to make use of it. And when we talk about supply chain responsibility, well, make them pay for the damage they do. And that's just something that they don't dare so far because just of the economic power of all these big players. But they just got to dare to do it. And I think also then, especially in the European Union, we see a bit of an awakening. But I just hope it takes more speed even. I hope it goes a bit quicker. If we already have a Horizon 2023, that's very encouraging. But let's hope it's actually going to happen,
Yeah, and I think maybe the extended user responsibility that you talked about, which is in the works, could be a very influential legislative piece of legislation to do that. But how do you see that actually? Do you?
Yeah, because we need a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
For example, hemp. Nowadays we talk again, luckily, about hemp. I talk already 15 years about hemp, but and also near Arnhem, there's one entrepreneur. He's restarted with this explosion, a chemical explosion that hemp can be soft, because hemp is itchy.
Very tough.
And very tough, so we don't like it anymore because everything has to be smooth on our skin. And he had a little bit innovation money, finance, but then the money was in stop, and the innovation is there, but nothing happens with it. So I think that the regulations, but also laws and this kind of things will make that there will come a fund where this kind of innovation, because we need really to investigate and to prove. I say, maybe you have a lot of chemicals, maybe this is on your skin. Who say this? Yeah, I say it now, I hear it from experts, but yeah, we have really to understand. And if I say to someone, hey, don't eat this because it's harmful for your body, oh, why? And I explain. But if I say, hey, don't wear that chemical t-shirt on your body, I wash it. Now, yeah, so we have really to investigate more, research more, innovate more, and yeah, like the textile industry went totally away here, and now it's returning a little bit because of COVID, because a lot of, for production wise, etc. So now we become aware that maybe for China, let them produce for the Chinese families become bigger and bigger. Now they can have 2 children, so let them produce for their own. And also here in Europe, but we are not aware that we are the second part in the world
who has already production. And we are not realizing, we are thinking, Far East, Far East. No, we have a lot of production. So think about East Europe, but we need innovation. But we need also people who wants to go to work and needs work. So that's also relevant. So so I think that if we are more aware that close by we need more innovation and we have more respect for this industry, then we can have a healthy industry again.
Right, and I think you added a really interesting point there, as government also having a role in inspiring innovation through maybe subsidies or grants. These kind of programs can really help to create certain innovations or new technological solutions that can make something like hemp, which before was maybe something that is hard to sell as a product right now, more accessible to more consumers. So I think that's a nice addition also to the role that governments can play. And then, Jessica, I'm sure you have also been bottling up enough answers right now, so please, do you have a perspective on this you would like to share?
I think the government is actually a very interesting player because they're putting a lot of ambitious goals out there that are quite hard to reach. So for example, in Germany there's this supply chain law which obliges companies with a certain turnover to be transparent about their supply chain. But this is also very risky and very hard for the brands because usually they don't know because they're subcontracting so many firms. And this creates a need for technology and innovation and a new way of doing business in a way that's maybe not out there yet, but that also creates a lot of pressure on developing countries that do not have these regulations or the technical know-how to come up with all this information. And in this way, I am a bit critical of the government and their ambitious regulations in terms of how much is workable in developing countries where it's more of a priority to survive and to feed your family rather than to work on sustainability because it's so far from them that we're working on it, but we have an elite view of how we want the fashion industry to be. But in the producing countries, this might not be their moral or their priority. And I think that's an interesting way where governments and companies and consumers still need to work together to find a solution that's more inclusive and also to make sure that the sustainable garments will be affordable and not only for the people that have their 9-to-5 jobs and can do this, but also for the people who are marginalized or don't have the budget to have a 50 euros t-shirt, because we can increase the prices, but at the same time, if that goes up from 3 euros to 10 euros, what's going to happen if the people who need that 3 euro t-shirt can't buy that anymore? That's like a social effect that we really need to consider if you want to push these changes in order to make it a sustainable change, not just from the environmental part, but also societal.
Really nice addition there as well, I think. Did you want to add on that? Okay. No, because I guess that's also sometimes a picture that's often forgotten now that in the European Union you have, like you said, all these ambitious targets being set, which is kind of maybe forcing countries in other places to follow behind without the same resources to actually execute those plans. So if I get you correctly, you're also saying, it's nice that government is now actually taking more of the responsibility of making this transition, but if they're only focused within their national boundaries of the transition that they want to achieve, and they're not considering maybe also the social dimension, internationally, but also within their own country, then you're still not really going to create a better industry, because you're going to have this elite type industry where everybody has really nice sustainable clothing with a great story, and you have a whole part of the industry which is kind of neglected, which also needs to be somehow taken into that transition. I'm not going to ask you to solve that problem right here, right now. I understand. That's quite difficult.
Ideally,
but
that will open the market for secondhand clothing more, because that's very cheap.
But cheap second-hand clothing, and it's important.
By now you also have boutique second-hand clothing, right? I remember I was somewhere in Berlin and I was looking through a second-hand store, and then I looked at the price and it was a shirt for like 200 euros, and I was like, wait, isn't this second-hand clothing? But I guess that's also more the elite side of that industry that you're talking about then. But do you have any insights at least to share about how governments could maybe better approach this transition then? Should they set ambitions internationally? Should they work, for example, with production countries like Bangladesh or China? Or do you have a perspective on that or a thought?
I think it all starts with partnerships and seeing what industry players can do, because there's a lot of innovations and startups going on. And if these get the budgets to scale up, I think that could be incredible. So for example, I did an internship at a supply chain transparency company, and they're now working in Pakistan to actually make cotton traceable. And this is the first time that this has been done in the industry. And it's actually working with the farmers who have their smartphones. They can basically do a QR code with their phone, and then it actually becomes transparent for the consumer, all the hands that are, you know, touching your garment. And if these things are scaled up and implemented by more companies, that already creates a lot more knowledge about what's going on. And then also identifying the hotspots of the ecological footprint of your production, as well as the social side. Is everyone reimbursed correctly, etc., etc. So I think connecting those two and making sure that they can work together and have the funds, that would be a huge driver.
Nice. So, well, I'm not sure if you completely solved it, but at least if they would take a step in this direction, that would already make great changes. So if you don't have anything else to add on this topic, then I would actually like to transition to the next and final topic for the panel discussion, unless there's still a burning question from the chat. But it's actually adding on to something that you already talked about, or just talked about, so that connects nicely, which is the role that technology can actually play in making the transformation within the fashion industry happen. So you already talked about, I guess that's the Retrace solution then that you're talking about. Yes. Also a program or a software solution that we are lucky enough to work with. But that's of course a great example of how to increase transparency and create more of an overview within the industry. So I'm actually curious if well, you all see well, how you see the role of technology to inspire the transformation. Is it a nice to have? Is it going to be a core part of that transformation to actually make it happen? Well, Rosemary, do you have a perspective on that? Also, maybe having seen some more of the changes of the technological use within the fashion industry?
Yeah, I see a lot of innovation, but nothing is 100% yet. And that's just what we have to be realistic on it. I saw also Retrace, but also Tailor Looks. This membran you add to fibers, and you can trace it also through the supply chain. But then at the end, you need blockchain. And blockchain is done by the internet, by satellites. We need a lot of energy. So I'm always a little bit like, yeah, on one part you offer this transparency and this traceability, but what is the cost of that? And if someone forget to add, because we are all humans, because we said no, everything is in blockchain and you can trace, but when someone is there or it's hacked or whatever, then yeah, it doesn't work. So yeah, I prefer to cool down, to have not so much production anymore, then know where you produce, and your supply chain don't need to be that long. The brands are able to know their supply chain and reduce your supply chain. Why you need to have 500 suppliers? Work only with the top 25 and diving deep with them. Maybe they know, or they are able to make more and better than what you are. Now you do to A and to B, and maybe they can do also A and B together. So I think that also the construction within the fashion brands can help. But I have to say it's very, very interesting. I'm very interested about what's happening, but I do not know. It's like plastics. It was invented by someone who was making billiard balls from horn, and then he invented plastic. And look at where we are now with plastics. So be careful.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that through your answer, where you see a lot of potential in technological solutions, and you do see that it offers some opportunities for well, organizations to take maybe more charge of their supply chains, for example. but I think I hear a healthy dose of skepticism as well, where you
Yeah.
have your doubts with how well it always will work, or
Yeah,
how it's
that's
maybe presented as a solution always.
I remember that one of the biggest retailer here in Europe, they add their supplier list on their website, and everyone was applauding. And I did a project in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and I was thinking, okay, let's see this list and the factories in Bangladesh. Maybe I can visit some. And everyone was applauding, but then I visited 3 of them, and I was really scared to get in there. And I now think, what is the meaning to be transparent and to put it only on your website? Consumers are not going there. So it's only for the Clean Clothes campaign, for this to look into it. And then, yeah, I have also a little bit a double feeling about it.
Right. Yeah. No, very interesting. And I think also important, technological innovation is sometimes presented as a one-size-fit-all solution for all our problems. And unfortunately, as of yet, we as humans haven't really been able to find a one-size-fit-all solution for anything.
I want really to put out that we are humans, and also the supply chain, our clothes are made by humans.
No.
And that's very important that we face that part.
That's an interesting remark, because one thing with technology, there's a lot of focus on transparency, but what I see in the more sustainable life cycle analysis that I do, it's about automation. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, automation. Yeah.
Automation and cleaner technologies. So from an environmental side, recycling technologies, chemical recycling technologies, digital 3D printing, using super efficient dyeing machines. These are all new machines, and as we start producing closer to home from a sustainability reason, we will see that the manufacturing companies are getting more advanced in this. But also in India, I see a lot of innovation in the machines. And this will bring the impact down from an environmental side, but if you look at the social side, it's kind of a weird way how social impact is reduced, because people are losing their job because of automation, because of complete robotic spinning machines, complete robotic sewing machines. Everything is computer steered, which is great for the environmental and social impact, because then you cannot treat someone wrong if the person is not working anymore, but then he doesn't have a job. So that's a very interesting dynamic. That's something that I predict will happen in the next decades.
It also happened here, that people lost their jobs because the industry went to the Far East. So I had also the criticism last week from someone who said to me, yeah, but it also happened here in our areas. So, but what we had to learn from that moment, I think, is that yes, there will be a decreasing jobs over there as well, but we have to make programs. We have to take the responsibility for the people who are now working in the textile industry to offer them something else, and that we had to learn from in the past, from what happens also here.
From our own mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, with circular economy, you see that if there is no waste to be treated, those people start doing jobs in recycling or in logistics. But what's maybe problematic is that if you are working in a sewing machine, you are very crafty, but maybe not highly trained in computer science or IT. And this will be hard to fund if you don't have a good salary. So maybe the problem just gets shifted, and then we'll be focusing on another industry.
Yeah. No, that's I think an interesting perspective. General challenge with automation, I think, where it often creates some really nice transitions in the industry, but it can come at a human cost, and that's also what I like about what you just said, and I think it relates what you just said as the last point, where if we do go in this direction of using technology as a kind of solution for some of the maybe environmental or even social problems that we have, then we have to keep in mind that this will still come at a social cost. And if we don't properly facilitate the transition from people that are now sitting behind a sewing machine that might in 10 years have to sit behind a computer managing a couple of sewing machines, then still a lot of people will be hurt in the end. Yeah, really interesting perspectives already on the technological side of this. Can I give the floor to one of you? Do you want to add something on this, or?
I think from social media has a huge impact as well, because I feel like, for example, with the hashtag Who Made My Clothes, we're actually holding the brands accountable of showing who is the garment maker behind our clothes, and making sure that the people are more connected. And what we see is that people are using these methods to hold brands accountable and send emails and send tweets and whatever. And this is also creating a more connection to the production. And I see that because people are becoming more aware of the production, they're also more aware of all the craft that goes into it. So for example, they're going more for handmade fashion or something more exclusive. And what you see, especially this year, is that a lot of undyed collections are coming out. So it's, for example, it's only raw cotton. And in that sense, the conscious awareness is rising. And therefore, I also see a shift back to more traditional ways of producing that is preserving craftsmanship and, for example, dyeing with plants, and something that's less hard on chemicals and less technological, but a bit more humane. And I think, it's interesting to see the trends both going way more technological, but also going back to the root of fashion and how it's actually produced, and that there's more time being spent on this. So I think it's a really interesting landscape, and I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Yeah, and that's a really cool perspective that you just shared about the role that social media also plays in this transition, because you really do see that through social media our societies automatically become a bit more egalitarian, because anybody can basically say anything about any organization, given they have an Instagram account and 2 hands. So that really does, or actually just 2 thumbs is enough, right? And that is, I think, a really interesting perspective also on how technology can play a role in helping the transition. It's also interesting to see indeed that because everything is becoming more technological, people are kind of pushing against the wave of technology as well and trying to make it a bit more human. It's definitely an interesting landscape, as you just said. I'm also very curious on where it goes. Maybe Jan, do you have something you would still like to add on this?
Yeah, I do agree with all 3 others that it is differentiated a bit. So you have to see it from different perspectives, and then I hope we can offer the one from our brand, which is very young, yes. But when we talk about integrating technology in general, I wouldn't know how we could say no to it. When I look at how we have done things so far and what we intend to do, there is no way around not using technology or not going with the advancements that are there. But I think for us it's more in communication and in offering transparency than it is in automating production, for instance, just because of the nature of our company, I think. But what I see that it helps us a lot is to create, and that's one of our goals, of course, is to create a connection between the person that is wearing the clothes and the clothes that they are wearing, basically. And that's something that we think technology enables us to do. So when it's about tracing where the shirt comes from, when it's about finding out where it's been made, who has it been made by, and so on, those are all things that we just started to tap into. Let's take the example of our QR codes. You can scan them and then you see the product passport. My personal wish is that we can take this further, that we can have something like an NFC chip, and there are movements that go into that direction where they have it in buttons, for instance. There are the buttons. They have it in buttons, for instance. So you have an NFC chip that can actually also be updated. Our QR code is static, so it's for that product. But if we have something like an NFC chip, then if you go through a platform like Vinted, you can even lock that. So when I buy it off Vinted, I see all the stations before, and that's something that technology can really help us with, I think.
You even have newest innovation in terms of tags. It's a DNA tag, where they use the nucleotides to make a unique pattern that can be scanned, and it cannot be corrupted. That's the beauty. Like a QR code, you can corrupt it. If you can just print a QR code or replace it.
But then it's a tag with your DNA.
No. It's just
that's a bit creepy.
A piece of skin on your shirt. Yeah.
It's a random combination of like a set of nucleotides.
Okay.
They put together in the lab, and then they put this.
Okay, so it's an own code, but it's a biological code, basically, or
And then you could like go through a gate or something.
You have scanners,
crazy.
See, but this is at the same time it's exciting and scary, and that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to say also. That's a bit the differentiation with all this technology. So let's
Yeah.
not say no to it just because it's scary, but let's also not blindly go into these things because we think it's going to save us all. But
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really nice close off of this topic as well, which, well, I kind of heard through all your stories where, well, technology is a tool. It's not any goal, or it's not going to be the solution to our problems. It's not necessarily inherently good or inherently bad. It has directions that it can be taken into, and, well, we have a decision in how we're going to use that. So we can use it to share our stories, create more transparency, make our societies more egalitarian. Or we can use it to plant biological chips in our skin, where I'm still not completely sure if it's.
still in the quotes, right?
it's-
It's in the. Okay.
It's not in your skin. You already have a biological code in your skin.
Yeah, that's true. It's me actually. Yeah. No, but either way, I think a very interesting topic, and with technology, especially some of the newer innovations are still very much at the beginning. So we're kind of gonna see where it's all gonna lead to. Let's hope that the human side at least is also gonna be safeguarded. However, we actually apply the technology, that for me would close off our panel discussion right here. So this was very interesting. I like the fact that different perspectives are shared. I get some signals that mean
one more
something.
question. There's a question.
Yes.
You want to hear?
No. I just wanted to close off the panel discussion, so it's no, please.
Sorry, then. So how do you think the big international companies will really make important changes when money is involved? Sustainability is not a big topic, which is sadly true. So yeah.
So like how will big
How do you
companies
think
actually?
international companies will really make important changes?
What role do you believe they will play? So I guess the very first question is: do you believe that big
Yeah.
international companies will play a big role in the sustainability transformation?
Yeah, from linear to circular is a big step.
Yeah.
If your business is already going on for 40, 50 years and you have to you have to change that, it goes step by step. And you see some steps, they are not there. But behind the scenes is more happening than the consumers are seeing. And by regulations, by European regulation, maybe global regulations, I think it's coming. So they have to.
Yeah.
So and the call to innovate, to look different, it's more and more there. So no, I don't believe yet that they are 100% sustainable, and also not in. I remember when I was working at the Fairware Foundation in 2004. I had an interview, and they say, "Do you think that during your career you're going to see it that it happening?" And I say no. And then after Rana Plaza, I was getting hope, and now. I don't know. I have 10 years to go, but I hope I will foresee after 2025 a big shift after the introducing of the EPR. I hope, but I know also that for them it's a big step.
It's a completely different approach to doing business,
Exactly.
basically, right?
Yeah.
No, and if they would have been 100% sustainable, I guess. We wouldn't have had to be here today.
Exactly.
We're also coming to a point where you can no longer say nothing. People, even companies like H&M, if they are looking for manufacturers in Turkey, India, Bangladesh, do they want their logo to be, because people are going to search for the manufacturers. When I look up manufacturers for the LCAs, I see companies showing off proudly their certificates, and I check these certificates, and okay, it makes sense. Right? They're there. I see them showing off their more sustainable techniques, and they do that because they know there's money to be made being sustainable. They know that they will make more business because all the big players, they are now looking for places to reroute their production so that people cannot scapegoat them anymore.
Mhm.
I think that's a very interesting trend, like the shaming and the fear of losing customers.
Yeah, and big corporations do have the purchasing power to actually make the suppliers shift towards a more sustainable approach. And you also see big corporations like CNA Foundation funding a lot of innovation that they themselves as a brand cannot do. But for example, they founded Fashion for Good, this innovation platform in Amsterdam, which then sources all these innovation funding projects to smaller initiatives. And doing so, they actually make the company a lot more circular, as well as they're one of the biggest buyers of organic cotton. And if that demand was not there, they wouldn't purchase that. And even though the cotton may not be 100% organic, it is showing, you know, the suppliers and the industry that that is the way to go. And you see that that's also what suppliers are following right now. So I think they definitely have the power because they are so big. It might take more time, but yeah, seeing from startups, they do everything correctly, but they may not have the power yet to drive the whole global demand in a different way. I think that's where bigger corporations can really like take the first step with a lot of impact.
Yeah, that is, I think, a really nice addition to that as well. Where, well, of course, we would like to instantly change the industry, but unfortunately, if we go to a manufacturer right now and we say, change your production process, please, they'll be like, how many orders are you going to place? And if that's not in the tens of thousands, then they'll be like, no, we'll keep doing as we're doing, we're fine. So I think that's a great point. And also what I heard, at least in both your answers, also, whether they want it or not, they will have to change at least a little bit. And some do take that responsibility more to heart than others. But either if it's through legislation or if it's through changing consumer trends or anything else, the bigger companies cannot get away with not saying anything about this topic anymore. So I think that's also a really good point, even if it's only because it will make them money, right?
There's just one more interesting example that I would like to mention. When I was doing LCA for one of Clean and Unique platform, J-Label, the first thing I saw was cellulose, like viscose.
Mm-hmm.
And viscose has a very bad reputation in the industry as being a chemical, being highly chemical. So I was already like, okay, they're not going to score high. And then I did hours of research in the super big producer called Birla, which is one of, I think it's quote 500 biggest production in India. And the more I read and the more I studied, I see that they are also having this regenerative pledge, and they're doing so much, and they're almost CO2 neutral. I was like, okay, well, this is really impressive. I'm really impressed. And then you think like, okay, that wouldn't have happened some years ago. So you really, maybe from what I see, I can see big companies changing.
Yeah, that's
that
nice.
That gives me hope.
Yeah, this story actually also gives me hope that well, hopefully in 10 to 20 years.
And even G-Label is not that big anymore at this
Still.
moment. It's still on Clean and Unique. We help on the platform only designers, small brand startups, and they try to help them to grow.
Right.
So hopefully in a few years you say also bye-bye, Rose,
No,
because we
don't think
grow
so.
and we have to leave your platform. But therefore is also a platform like ours that we can share the knowledge, that we can help them grow. And I made a lot of mistakes in the past, and probably to grow you need to have your mistakes. And but the knowledge and to share the knowledge will be sufficient for all the people who are starting now a fashion brand, even if when you are not from the fashion industry.
Yeah, no, and well, we are very thankful for organizations like yours, because they definitely well, make it more accessible to kind of have the impact that we dream to have. And if I heard you correctly, you were also referring to a manufacturer in India, is that right? Or were you just referring to the J-Label?
The producer of the fiber.
Of the fiber, right, okay. That's interesting, yeah. Well, I already got signaled that we're a bit over time with the panel discussion, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, because that means it was interesting and we enjoyed talking about these topics, or we had a lot to say. So, well, Jan, I would just like to give you the opportunity if there's anything you still wanted to add on this topic, or
No.
has it all been said?
I'm just going to say, yeah, if you want to continue the panel discussion, we have the breakout room, so I think we should just take it over there.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. No,
Yeah.
that's a good transition to the next component of our evening, and the final component of our evening, which is the networking opportunity. So because it is also a little bit later, I do want to first check with everybody who's in the still in the live stream now, if you are interested in connecting with well, the people you are seeing here in this panel discussion. We have set up Google Meet rooms for everyone. So if you are interested in that, please share it in the YouTube chat now, so that we can kind of make an inventorization of well, how many people do want to do the connection. If there are people, of course, that want to do that, we'll set it all up. If people are tired and want to go home, well, that's a shame. You're missing a great opportunity, but it's understandable, of course. And one thing I also still should do, so thank you for the signal there, Jan, is not unimportant, which is us giving you a little bit of gift as having participated in the event. So, well, this is these are some of our very first products that we created. And these will be a thank you gift from us to you for participating. So thank you very much for being here. It was been very interesting to hear everybody speak and to hear your perspective. So
Thank you.
there you go, Rosemary.
Thank you.
You find a QR code here on the top left. That will take you also to a questionnaire where we're curious about your experience with the product. So please do share that as well. Jessica, here's the one for you. Jasper, there you go. Thank you very much. And well, I'm gonna give the one to you later, Vincenzo, but I have it right here. No worries, we got you covered as well. Thank you just for your presence. Yeah,
You're welcome.
and well, that does conclude the panel discussion then. So again, if you are interested in talking to any of the people that you see here, please say it in the chat, then we will set it up. If people are going home, then we can also go home. So then we can account for that. Thank you very much for listening at least. Thank you for being here, and then we'll hang around for a little bit to see your reactions, and well, have a good night at least.